Hey book friends, it's Dustin from Modern Metaphysique, and today I have something really special for you. I am so excited to share with you Le Pater, Alphonse Mucha's Symbolist masterpiece and the Lineage of Mysticism by Thomas Negovan. As always, down in the description box below you will find where you can pick up a copy of this book for yourself, as well as links to all of my social media and a link to my personal website, so be sure to check all that out. I am so excited about this book. I've seen it floating around for a little while now, and it was something that was definitely not always within my budget, but is very affordable considering what you get. This beautiful, beautiful book is published by Century Guild, and as you can see, this is probably the most of my table you guys have ever seen, and that is because this book is literally 12 inches by 16 inches. It is a tome and is probably now what I would consider the crown jewel in my library. It is absolutely beautiful, and I just want to say thank you so very much to the folks at Century Guild who sent this over for me to share with all of you. So a big thank you. So let's dive into this. Alphonse Mucha is a pretty well-known artist in terms of the Art Nouveau tradition. He was born in Ivenice, which is now a part of Austria, and he spent most of his life working in Paris during the Art Nouveau movement, and he really kind of embodies and defines that art movement. You know, when you take art history classes, Alphonse Mucha is someone that you just you spend a few days looking at his work, because not only did he do advertisements and illustrations for you know, different sort of magazines, he did theatrical posters, he even designed a jewelry shop, which is all done in the Art Nouveau style, and he just has this prolific body of work that encompasses not only illustration but architecture and, you know, graphic design and the whole nine yards, right? But by his own words, Le Pater, right, our Father, is his seminal work. This is the thing for him that expressed his soul, right? And is something that was incredibly important to him. Now, this work in and of itself basically goes through the Our Father prayer, and is basically what he's based all of this sort of book around, Alphonse Mucha. And on the cover here, you'll see just a beautiful illustration from it, and it's really fascinating too, because the depiction of God that Alphonse Mucha has chosen to present to us is a more androgynous female figure, almost like one that we see within the classic renditions of the tarot and in the world card. And on the book here, you'll see it's really beautifully constructed. You'll see that there is lovely embossing all over the book. You have a beautiful paper cover here on the front with gold embossing and stamping, and along the spine here you have these sigils, and each of these sigils was designed by Alphonse Mucha, and they represent a line in the Our Father prayer, which is really cool. The spine of the book itself is encased in leather, as is the back of the book, which is really lovely, with a nice stamp of Century Guild, who publishes this lovely tome. You can see it's done in a very classical style, which I just love. And it's been out since 2019, or at least that's when it was originally published. Now, you can get this book on Amazon, as well as directly from the publisher, and like I said, down in the description box below you'll find links to that. There is also currently in pre-order a expanded paperback edition of this book that is coming out, and you can pick that up, and it's got some additional content in it, which is really wonderful. And then there's also a limited clamshell boxed edition, which is just masterfully put together with these gorgeous marbled end papers, and it makes my mouth water. It's so beautiful. But this book itself is the one that we're going to dive into today, and I'm so eternally grateful for having this in my collection, because I've literally spent the last couple of weeks poring over this like you know, a hermit locked away in a tower somewhere. And I've loved it. Inside it is signed, and the book does have a nice little ribbon bookmark, which is really lovely. And I love the fact that it's signed. Now, the table of contents, here we have what is basically in the book. So the book starts out talking about the Lord's Prayer, right? And there's sort of some background to what Le Pater is. Then you have the author takes some time to really set you in time with what was going on in terms of the evolution of spirituality. So the spiritual movements and ideas that influence Alphonse Mucha in this work, as well as basically his time in Paris and the Art Nouveau sort of movement, right? And then really dives into, in the last third of the book, the actual facsimile version of Alphonse Mucha's original Le Pater. So the author, I mean, he spent well over 2 decades researching and collecting information for this tome, and you can really tell because it's exceptionally well written. It's very approachable, which I found to be, which actually kind of surprised me, right? Usually with these books, they're very academic, they're very dense, but his writing style and his explanation of things is just really approachable, and he uses a lot of just very casual vernacular. He doesn't go into like, you know, crazy long diatribes, which is nice and refreshing. And as you can see, you know, you get a good chunk of information throughout this book, but you also get these beautiful, huge illustrations. And just for comparison, right, because we all love tarot on this channel, here's a tarot card for size comparison. I mean, it is massive, absolutely massive. So yeah, it's beautifully printed. The whole book is in complete color. Although there are a lot of sort of black and white sort of depictions of things, but it's printed in color. It's printed on really beautiful paper, and yeah, I mean, I loved going through this book. And here you can see where the author is kind of going through the history of symbolism and the sort of spiritualist movements that influenced Mucha's work, which is really, really awesome. This beautiful, beautiful depiction of the Invisible College, of the Rosy Cross. We have a whole sort of section dedicated to, you know, the Freemasonry and the Freemason traditions that influenced his artwork, which is really cool. A whole page dedicated to sacred geometry. Here we have Metatron's cube. I mean, it's all really well done. Alchemy, you know, Robert Flood, who is one of my favorites. I love Robert Flood's work, and of course, William Blake was obviously a huge influence on him, and this beautiful rendition of the Ancient of Days, which is about the size, I think, of the original, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that original piece, I think it's a little bit bigger. If I remember correctly, it's maybe about that big, so it's pretty close. But you get a real sense of the beauty of this, of all of the artwork in this book, because of how big it is and because of how just exceptionally well printed the book is here. So, you know, here we have Gustave Dore, which is, yeah, all of the big players are sort of taken into account here, and you see how much they influenced one another and how they influenced the Art Nouveau movement and just the sort of the culture that existed in Paris at this time. So I'm not going to go through this page by page, but you definitely get a good sense of what is in this book, and it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, they talk about architecture, everything, graphic design, painting, the whole 9 yards is discussed within this book, which is just amazing. It's absolutely beautiful, and the details are just gorgeous. This is that jewelry shop that I had mentioned. Isn't that just amazing? I remember the first time I saw this in I think it was my art history 2 class back in undergrad days, and it just blew me away. I was just like, wow, I want to live in that. Because it's just absolutely beautiful. And Art Nouveau is really one of those art movements that I love and adore. I love Renaissance art, I love medieval art, and I love Art Nouveau. Modern art, not so much my cup. And as you can see here, the book is beautifully well constructed. As we got to the middle of a signature, you can see the sewn binding, which is really nice. Yeah, really, really fantastic stuff. It even talks about sort of, you know, the overall history of what was going on in Paris at the time. So the author goes through great lengths to really place this work, right, Le Pater, in historical context, not just art historical context, but historical context in terms of what was going on in Paris, the people and the movements and the spiritual movements and the religious philosophies and the symbolic ideas, all of the pieces. He really kind of roots everything in the time before he moves into actually going through the work itself, which is amazing. So here we go. Here's the original, here's where we get into the original part of Le Pater. And the really cool thing, the thing that I love, was the inclusion of these early sort of sketches that he did in preparation for doing the work. So it's just really amazing sketched out pieces, which I thought was just really fantastic. And you really kind of see into the mind of the artist with things like this, right? You see how the work evolved and what he's thinking about and what's important to him and things like that. So that's really cool. The last third of the book here, and this is kind of where it starts, is the work itself presented in facsimile, so at actual size, and it's impeccably well produced. Here you have the Lord's Prayer, Our Father, and it goes through the whole thing. Here's where you can kind of see the sigils that he created and how they align with each of the lines of the Lord's Prayer, which is really beautiful. And as you continue through this section, right, you basically get the plate, which has the Latin and the French line for the Lord's Prayer. So this plate itself represents Our Father who art in heaven, and you have that in Latin, and then you have that in French, and then you have all this symbolic meaning here, right? You have the pomegranates, you have the half moon. Those of you who are familiar with the tarot probably recognize some of these things, and it's interesting that this is key 2, and we see some of these same symbols, right, appear in key 2 of the tarot, right? Here we have this beautiful triangle with the tetragrammaton inside, or the name of God, Yod He Vav Hevi Yahweh. It's just like there's so much to unpack in all of this, and it's so beautifully done. Here's the preliminary drawing. And then you have a page where Alphonse Mucha himself kind of just takes you through what he presented and what it means to him, which is really, really kind of fascinating, right? You get sort of a direct line. And these are just as equally beautiful, right? These beautifully illuminated pages with gorgeous calligraphy, and I mean, it looks like something straight out of a medieval manuscript, but it, you know, it was something that was produced during the Art Nouveau movement. So it's just, it's so beautiful. And then you also get these drawings. So then he gives you a piece of art that represents that line to him, which is really amazing. And the author does a great job of kind of giving you a nice little blurb about the piece itself and kind of breaking it down for you, which is really useful. So, and this sort of outline continues through each one, right? Each line. So here, hallowed be thy name. Again, you have it in Latin, and you have the French, right? And then you have all these different symbolic things like the bell, right? You have this censer with incense and things like that. It's really, really amazing. Just gorgeous, gorgeous work. The thing that I love the most about this is the inclusion of these preliminary drawings. So the final drawings themselves, right, are presented in black and white. And I think it's really fascinating because you get these where he's obviously taken some time to throw some watercolor on these. And it's really fascinating because when we think about Art Nouveau, right, we think about very colorful works of art, right? Not something like this, which is almost much more reminiscent of like Gustave Doré's work. But again, that's the beautiful thing about this book, is that the author walks you through and sets you up to be able to recognize all of those things. If you haven't taken as many art history classes as I have, right? He really presents the information in a way that you'll start to pick up on all of these symbolic things that he's presenting in L'Orateur, and being able to decode it for yourself, which is really cool. And then, you know, as all things in symbolism goes, you start seeing those symbols everywhere, and you start recognizing the hidden language that is being spoken around us every day, and has been spoken since the dawn of civilization, really, right? And I think that's the really beautiful thing about works like this. This is just such a beautifully well done, impeccably well researched book that I can't speak highly enough of it. It is just phenomenal. So if you have the opportunity to pick this up, if you're interested in Art Nouveau, if you're interested in Alphonse Mucha, if you're interested in sort of the history of mysticism and symbolism, I mean, any of those topics, this is a book that you want to grab, because it is just amazing. Absolutely beautiful stuff. Just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. And then when we reach the back at the end of Le Pater, so we'll get all the way towards the back here. You even have a whole section here, or a whole sort of plate for Amen, which is amazing. Then he as an author takes some time to showcase some of the other editions of this that were produced. And again, this was produced in book form, and Mucha originally wanted to exhibit it at the World's Fair, I believe. And it was something that was incredibly important to him. This was his life's work, really. Absolutely beautiful. There's also a nice little section here that shows the sort of design process and how things changed, right? So you have the final printed version of this piece, and you can see how kind of the scaling of things changed. Some of the figures changed. You know, the rock became a little bit more predominant in this version than it did in this version over here, things like that. So as an artist, that is really fascinating to me, and I love the inclusion of that in this book. Beautiful stuff. Some sketches, very early sketches. And then, there's a nice sort of conclusory section to the book that shows how this influenced art moving forward, which is really cool. There's some really beautiful things in here. Things that I was not even aware of, that I hadn't really learned about in art history, which is really cool. Just really fantastically done. And the thing that really just has blown me away about this book is the quality of the print. It's so easy to see things. Le Pater, Alphonse Mucha's Symbolist masterpiece, and the Lineage of Mysticism by Thomas Negovan. This is produced by Century Guild, and it is just the coolest book I own now. I mean, it's fascinating. It gripped me. I mean, it really did. I got it, and it just completely gripped my attention, and I literally spent hours just staring at some of the beautiful images in this book, really trying to dissect them and understand them and piece them together, and going back and reading the writings of Mucha as well as the writings of Negovan, and really kind of diving into it. And it's just a really beautiful expression of this prayer, which I think, sometimes a lot of people kind of gloss over, right? But it's a prayer that has existed for a very long time and is a cornerstone of religion in the modern world, and obviously was something really profoundly important to Mucha himself. So if you have the opportunity to check this one out, be sure to do so. Again, links to where you can grab this or any of the other editions. There's a paperback version of this, as well as a limited sort of hand-bound collector's edition version of this. All of that information is in the description box below. Be sure to check that out. Let me know what you think about this book in the comments down below, or if you love the Art Nouveau movement or anything like that. I would love to hear what your thoughts are. I really appreciate each and every one of you coming to hang out with me today and check out this beautiful book from Century Guild. And as always, remember, everyone is fighting a battle that you know nothing about. So be kind, always. Bye, everybody.